to talk a little bit about high build application now. There's not so much you can really show when it comes to high build application. You sort of put the high build on at the relevant wet film thickness, and that's pretty much all there is to it. But what I'd like to try and explain is some of the issues that come up in high building. We've got a situation here where we've got an old fiberglass boat we've done a heap of repairs on. We've bogged those repairs up with epoxy bog. To just go straight ahead and put normal high build, sandable high build on top of that bog is not an ideal situation. You've got a fairly porous material going on to another very porous material, being the bog. We like to seal that bog off and protect it from any chance of water getting into it or the amines in the bog getting out through the primer and into the surface colour. So we're going to show you how we put a sealer coat of a more waterproof material on these bog areas and then go ahead with our high build application. And we're going to use this opportunity also to explain the use of wet film thickness gauges. So we'll get set up and do that. Alright, we've got our sealer primer in a 2 litre pressure pot now. And you will notice it's going to single out the patches of bog. We've put a good sealer coat of the sealer primer over the top of the bog just to seal that bog off, protect it from the outside world. He's put about 175 microns of sealer primer on there. We'll have to let that set up for about 3/4 of an hour to an hour, depending on how warm the weather is. And then we can go straight on with our application of high build with that bog nice and sealed away. Okay, our epoxy sealer primer's on and been curing for about an hour now, but it's all touch dry, it's all sealed. We're going to go and put some epoxy high build on top of that now, 2 or 3 coats. While we're doing that, I was going to demonstrate the use of a wet film thickness gauge. Now, wet film thickness gauge, as the name suggests, tells you how much of a wet film you're putting on, and if you calculate the volume of solids, you can work out then what the dry film thickness will be if you document it at the end of each coat. Now, the gauge is made up of numerous sides, in this case 4, with a heel on each end, and then a bunch of teeth which have numbers on them telling you how much the film, how deep the film is in microns. Basically the concept is to find a flat surface, push the gauge in until the heels are firmly on the substrate underneath, and then the teeth will tell you what the minimum amount of material you've got on there is. It varies on this particular gauge from 25 microns right up to 3200, which is sort of take you right through the full spectrum of any sort of coatings that you would apply in a normal environment that we would work in. So I'll get A to put a coat of high build on. I'll show you how to put the gauge on the surface and we'll take a reading. It's quite important that I don't find a spot where that yellow primer is underneath, because it could still be soft and the heels will just push into that and give us an inaccurate reading. So I've used this bottom edge here where there was no primer before. I'm fairly sure it'll be between 25 and 125 this coating. It might be a little bit over that, but we'll try it in that range anyway. So we find our straight piece of substrate, bring it in, gently push it in until it's at the bottom, then count how many teeth are wet. Now we know this particular gauge is showing that there's at least 100 microns on there, but not quite 125. So therefore we can be assured that there's at least 100 microns wet on there in that particular coat, in that particular area. So that's basically how the gauge works. If we were looking to put 150 over all of these parts to a specification, we would start just as Adrian has there now, put one coat on, test it. We're not quite right, tell Aid to adjust his gear or adjust his hand speed so that he has a little bit more on there. We'll test it again until it's about right. It proceed a bit further. We'll check it a couple more times in the first 2 minutes that he's spraying. Once he's got it, we let him go for a while, then sporadically check a few of the other parts as we go around, looking for a nice consistent reading within sort of 50 or 60 microns as we go around with this sort of material. But that's a fairly simple concept. That's how it works. And we just document it so we know how much is on there. If we're doing a new build that was done to specification.